So, an interesting thing happened to me yesterday, relatively interesting, in a life which is not particularly interesting most of the time. So I had a gig yesterday with my wife and band, and I had Ryan brought back my Schecter Nick Johnson. I was like, which one should I gig with? I just sound checked with this, and I kind of said, should I gig with this one or the other one? And then he said, why don't you gig with this one? This is the one that you made. So obviously she remembered that I'd made this guitar. So I made this guitar in 2015. It was a parts caster. This was made from a body from eBay. It's a Mighty Mite neck, relatively skinny neck. It's got K-line pickups in it now, and the body is like swamp ash, or just ash, I don't know, but kind of with the grain-filled black, and then sort of stained white, and then some sort of oil finish. There's nothing particularly fancy about it. It's just something that I put together, and this one actually turned out to be my favourite of all of the little parts casters that I built. I think I built 3. Now, what it made me think is is it sometimes better to be playing gear that A, has a bit of a story for us, and B, that we know, so gear that we're really familiar with, And then what that also made me think was, well, I've spent a lot of time playing other guitars that aren't this one. Could I have had more enjoyment if I just stuck with this one to some extent? And then that made me think about my first kind of proper valve amp. So in, I don't know, about 2006, I think, 2007, I walked into Manson's and there was this used Mesa Boogie Nomad 45. Now, I wanted a Mesa Boogie for a fair while, but the ones that I would have, known about would have been ones that were way more expensive, like rectifiers or Road Kings. This was just sat there, £750, which was a lot of money for me then, obviously. And I walked out with this, and I was playing 7 strings at the time. I didn't really necessarily love it, but it was the only Mesa Boogie that I could afford. And as time goes by, this has actually become a really enjoyable amp for me. And I just turned it on just now because I was kind of thinking about this nostalgia thing. I've got other amps, but this one, to me, I still, when I turn it on, think this does more of the things that I want and none of the things that I don't. And it's simple. I could easily replace it because they come up relatively often. Seems to work really well with single coils. I think that might be the key to why I like it. But, I could have been just gigging with one of these for a while. The clean channel I don't love super much. There's not much going on bass wise, and also when it comes to the reverb, where are you? I don't know, there doesn't seem to be much reverb at the moment anyway. But I did used to remember when I turned this one up quite loud, really liking the clean tones. It's quite a pretty sound to me. If I turn the presence down, I could get a bit darker. It's quite a focused sound though, right? So it's kind of, I think this would sit in the mix quite nicely. And I think maybe this is why I did enjoy gigging with it. That's the kind of clean tone. Once I put delay and reverb on that, I'm imagining it's quite a nice round clean tone, I think. Then moving on, my favourite, I think, drive channel on any amp is this, and this is the channel 3, the one that people online seem to hate a lot, but for me, what I've come to love about lead tones now seems to be captured quite nicely in this lead channel. If I dime the mids, take the treble and presence down a bit. So, like, for me, that's closer than I get on most other amps to being a lead tone that I'd be really happy with. I take the presence and treble down further. It's quite barky when I'm sat here. I don't know how it's going to come across on camera, but the other channel, we've got channel 2. Anyway, it made me think about, I've seen comments from people that they have, like, in their head this golden era rig when they had, like, a rig that they were really happy with, that they maybe were gigging with. So Chris, I know you used to gig with a couple of EV M12s, right? And a big rack and all this sort of stuff. Some Boss units and maybe a Sans amp even. Anyway, but, you know, I used to gig with this, and there's an RGM amp gizmo which I've got here, and I used to use a Pod XT Live to switch the channels, and so I could have, you know, like a delay, overdrive, EQ, whatever in a loop in full cable method as well. By the way, I used to do this, and I had my kind of channel switching amp controller. And now I think these days I could do something like this with the HX Stomp, and I don't know, maybe I'm going to consider doing this, because I think there is something fun about plugging into something that you used to really get on with. And I'm pretty sure that live, these are exactly the sorts of tones that are going to work quite well for me. You know, I'm looking for things that are mid-forward. I'm looking for things that react well to single coils. And I'm looking for things that don't get kind of too thin and spiky. This is very much like a mid-forward amp that is just kind of the frequencies that are going to cut. So I don't know, maybe there's something to be said for returning to an old friend. So I'm going to maybe try that. Maybe I'll try and hook it up with the amp gizmo again. Or even, I like the way this has got a black shadow speaker in it. It seems to me to be quite a dark speaker. I don't know if it's because of age and being played quite a lot over the years, maybe even before I got it. But I don't know, this just seems to be voiced in a way that I really like it. I don't know if you in the comments have your own golden era kind of rig. I don't know if any of you have experienced the Mesa Boogie Nomad 45. Do you like it or not? There's not many amps that I could play into like this and actually enjoy lead tones that are saturated, but still to me are doing that sustaining thing that I like. Golden era rigs, do you have one? And should I have been playing this for more? I don't think for live use this sort of thing could have been where I'd been for a while. I guess if it was like last night where I had to be quite quiet, this might not work especially well. But it's also got a solo boost button like you get on some of the more expensive Mesa Boogies, which is super useful for live, obviously. 3 channels. I don't know, it seems to me that I've missed a bit of a trick, and there is still very much a reason I keep this around. I think it is the closest thing that I've found to an amp that works for me reliably, like, and does most of the things that I want. And equally, this Telecaster, as much as it's not really worth anything, and I made it, it's not exactly like I'm a skilled guitar builder, it kind of just works for me. And I think there's a nice simplicity and beauty about that. Maybe. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and let me know your golden era rig. Before this amp, I had a Marshall valve state thing, and before that I had a Crate GX65. And I think before that I had like a little Park. So this was technically like my 4th amp, but my first proper all tube thing, and still I think my favourite. And I guess it even extends into like the modelling thing as well, doesn't it, right? Because you think about, well, what would I use most of the time if I just wanted to get and make some music and record? It'd be the HX Stomp. You know, I mess around with lots of other stuff, but when it comes to just trying to play guitar and have a good time, it's almost always this. So in some regards, it makes sense to kind of try and keep it simple and not overcomplicate things. Don't worry too much about the kind of gas stuff. You've probably already got something that you could really enjoy. I did.